I'm extremely interested in this whole issue of Michael Westwood's petition. Michael Westwood is a pub landlord from the West Midlands, and he has put out this petition that has gone viral, and in a matter of a day or two, it's got over 2 million signatories. He's unwittingly become this figure of change in British politics. His petition called for a general election, which began with modest expectations. He thought he'd be happy with a few thousand signatures, but it's now surpassed 2 million. And while the numbers are impressive, the petition's actual power and point deserves closer scrutiny, because it's not going to result in a general election. Let's be very clear about that. To result in a general election, it would need to, even to have the moral authority to consider triggering a confidence vote, it would need to, I think, have significantly more votes than the anti-Brexit petition. It would need to probably have more votes than the Labour Party got at the last election. That's over 9 million votes. I think it might even need to have as many votes, have as many signatures as the opposition amassed among them. I mean, all of this, which is either 17 million or 19 million, depending on how you calculate it, all of this, does it not demonstrate the absurdity of the first past the post principle, where a government can say it's got an overwhelming majority for getting almost 50% less votes than the opposition? That is an absurdity, isn't it? Westwood's frustration stems from what he perceives as the broken promises by the Labour government under Keir Starmer, particularly in delivering economic growth and maintaining and managing public spending. And his motivation was further stoked by the autumn statement, the budget, which he believes will result in business redundancies because of rising costs, and his petition reflects a broader dissatisfaction among the electorate, not just with Labour, but with politics as a whole. And despite its rapid growth, the petition remains far from the historic 6 million signatures from the 2019 petition to revoke Article 50. Crucially, these petitions do not have the constitutional power to compel a general election, and the last government has demonstrated in the way that it dismissed the 2019 petition that the petitions are really not worth the paper they're written on. The UK's political system is designed to safeguard stability, and general elections are dictated by parliamentary mechanisms, not public petitions. However, the petition serves a different function. It's less about forcing Starmer to act and more about signalling public dissatisfaction. And I would say public dissatisfaction not just with Starmer and with the Labour government, but also with the opposition. It reminds the opposition and all politicians that failure to represent the electorate can lead to an eruption of grassroots movements that bypass traditional channels. Now, the petition taps into a broader crisis of trust. The British Social Attitudes Report found record low confidence in the government, exacerbated by events like the pandemic, Partygate, the economic mismanagement of Liz Truss, and voters' faith in mainstream politics is precarious at best, and has sunk to a nadir from which it may never recover. We need to work together to bring trust back, with even Labour supporters increasingly disillusioned. According to anecdote, we don't have very many good, solid bits of evidence. Westwood's petition embodies that mistrust, functioning as a 21st century alternative to political marches, particularly in an era where digital activism holds sway. This is why it's so important, because it offers us a different way of registering political concerns. We're so often locked in that 19th century way of coming out onto the street, or signing paper petitions and then presenting them at Downing Street. And the governments have got used to this, have got ways of bypassing this, bypassing strikes, bypassing marches, getting the police to send the marches into areas of London or wherever where you don't have to notice them. They've managed discontent and public anger, public resentment. But actually, here is a tool which provides a 21st century solution. Elon Musk's endorsement of the petition adds another layer of intrigue. As a global figure and a frequent commentator on politics, his declaration that Britain faces a tyrannical police state was predictably dramatic. Somebody said that I was repeating his charge. I was quoting his charge. It's a different thing. I think we have to watch the slip into tyranny. But I think it would be, I think Musk is overstating the case to call Starmer a tyrant. While Musk's involvement has no direct impact, it highlights the increasing globalization of political discourse and where figures like Musk blur the lines between domestic and international commentary. Frankly, if we have a right to comment on American politics, Musk has every right to comment on British politics. Ultimately, Westwood's petition is not about achieving an immediate election, but about forcing political leaders to reckon with public dissatisfaction. It's a warning shot. If mainstream parties fail to address voters' needs and concerns, alternative movements, petitions, or even smaller parties could disrupt the status quo. And it's, when you look at the smallest significant party in Westminster, that's Reform, it's got more votes across the nation because of the first-past-the-post absurdities than the Lib Dems. It's got more votes than the SNP, more votes than the Greens. The Greens have got quite a lot of votes, actually. The Greens are in the millions. The Greens have actually got more votes than the SNP. I mean, the madness of the first-past-the-post system is demonstrated in these vote numbers immediately. And some form of proportional representation is screaming out to be established in our country. Starmer's response to the petition so far, and he's quite clever actually, because he needs to get that response in early. He needs to get a debate in early in case this petition does in fact reach 9 million. At which point his main defence, that many didn't vote Labour and want a rerun, it may at the moment be constitutionally correct, but risks appearing dismissive and may ultimately be irrelevant, depending on how many votes this petition, how many signatures this petition amasses. If Labour can deal with this matter now, it can say it's already dealt with. Rather like the last government and this government says about reality TV, it's already dealt with. This is the government's way, and it's inappropriate. We need to have a way of coming back and saying, actually, you think you've already dealt with it, but you haven't. We need to review it. We need to review this election. That's called a general election, isn't it? We need to review this referendum. That's called another referendum. And the point about referendums, and I'm not going to play around with cod Latin, the point about referendums is that they're simply another word for plebiscite. And I think 6 plebiscites held by the fascists during the late 1920s through to the 1930s were all overturned when the fascists fell out of power. Referendums are not an eternal decision. Referendums, like general elections, provide a temporary or temporal solution. that can be changed by the electorate. So the idea that we have a referendum and we never change it, this is absurd. Utterly absurd. The idea equally that we keep having referendums until we get the result we want is equally absurd. In a representative democracy, the idea that we have a referendum at all is questionable. And that's the argument that Thatcher put forward. The idea that we have a referendum which is advisory and then becomes a de facto command is a political sleight of hand, particularly when the referendum result for Brexit was such a knife-edge result. The referendum, the terms of the referendum, the failure of the referendum to reflect the difference in the regions, Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, Wales, and then the difference in the individual shires and so on. The fact that this was not factored into the referendum result demonstrates an inadequacy by the then government, by Cameron's government, an arrogance by Cameron's government. But we saw that arrogance when Cameron mocked the late Queen and said that she was purring after the independence referendum. And as for this petition, I think all it does is it demonstrates absolutely and fundamentally the inadequacy of our current opposition. I suggest the biggest point that this petition makes is to impress on the opposition that if they are incapable of doing their job and holding the government to account, they can be eclipsed by this sort of public outcry. It's not the ideal way to behave in a representative democracy, but it commends itself as a 21st century alternative to a political march, doesn't it? And as for the claims made by people who say that this petition is full of people who have foreigners or bots, I've looked into that. And if you want to sign up to this petition, you have to put in your name, your email. That will then check, and it will establish what your address is with your postcode. And so the Parliament insists that the checks are there to stop the bots and the malign foreign actors from taking over this petition site. And I think, if Parliament is there to say this petition site is reasonable, then Parliament must take note of what the petition is requesting. The debate is necessary. I say, if Starmer is clever, he'll hold it sooner and then be able to dismiss it. But if he's not clever, it will linger and it will become significantly more powerful. And Westwood's initiative is a digital manifestation of democratic frustration. If Labour cannot articulate and deliver on a compelling vision, it risks losing trust of the voters who gave them their one last chance with mainstream politics. This petition is not a call for revolution, but a sign that a restless electorate will not tolerate complacency, either with the government or with His Majesty's loyal opposition. And I think the opposition should be as concerned about the popularity of this petition as the government should be concerned. Both should be concerned because it should worry both. So Kemi Badenoch should not be sitting on her laurels. She should actually get off her backside and do some work before tomorrow. Because if she can't manifest credibility at the dispatch box tomorrow with all this support, with all this popular support, she demonstrates that she is utterly unfit for the job. I will be watching and I will comment. And As for the petition, while it cannot dictate party outcomes, it offers a stark reminder that the public's voice, whether expressed in votes, marches or viral petitions, cannot be ignored.